Hi, everybody. I've been lucky enough to travel the country and talk to thousands of small businesses and nonprofits about email marketing and obviously Constant Contact in specifics. And what I've learned is to lean on certain features and certain tools to elicit a response. Now, that response will be either to buy Constant Contact, use Constant Contact better, or even to use solution providers as a solution. So what I want to do today is share those go-to items in product that elicit that kind of response. Now, the good news is many of the features I'm going to share today are new to Constant Contact or relatively new to Constant Contact. There's been so many features launched in product recently that you almost have to talk about some of these new features. But there's also some older features that maybe you've overlooked. Maybe you're a new solution provider and never thought about. And you might want to watch the video to see how I utilize the tools to elicit a response. Maybe there's going to be some nuggets there for you in positioning a particular feature that maybe you've never thought about. So let's take a look at some of these features.
So let me start off with the theory of today's Marketing Minute, just a little deeper. I'm going to share with you things that I've shared from the stage in front of a group in training and in presentations, certainly in any kinds of one-on-one demonstration of Constant Contact, or if I'm trying to get a new customer of Constant Contact, I kind of go into my bag of tricks and use these elements to impress them and move them into Constant Contact. Many of these you've probably tried, many of these you've probably done. There's nothing particularly earth-shattering here, but there are some things that you might have overlooked as a delighter because they're so basic, or maybe you've overlooked them because you're a new partner and you just didn't know that they existed. So let's start with a basic one. Let's talk a little bit about the divider and the spacer. So the divider is a really handy tool to show an individual or a group. Divider is pretty basic stuff. It divides the email up, but what's overlooked is that when you click on it, you can increase and decrease the thickness. You can add more or less, and let's actually remove some padding. We'll remove all the padding from it, and we'll increase this the full width. You can actually use the divider pretty nicely to obviously divide the email, but really add a nice design element to the email. Most folks, especially if they've used the older editor, may not even try to click on the divider, may not even know that the divider can be changed in this way. You could change the divider in the old editor by going into the CSS code. The fact that it's built into the editor is just a really surprisingly simple delighter. Folks really like that, especially those with a little bit of a design bent. In the same spirit, we'll talk about the spacer. Now, the spacer is kind of one of my favorite things to show folks, because especially if they've been using Constant Contact and you're trying to sway them into using you, or helping somebody with a better design philosophy. Certainly if you're designing emails for clients, and then of course if you're showing this off to a group of people, the divider is a handy tool in your tool belt because you can add and remove space to make things line up really nicely. All right, next let's go up to the header options, and I hope you're aware of this one, but again, if you're new, you may not have seen or be aware of this. One thing that definitely sways a group and absolutely will sway an individual is making them aware of the pre-header text. And the way I usually do that is I'll have them pull out their phone and actually look at the pre-header text. And what I do is I talk to them about how often they actually read that pre-header text to decide whether or not to open an email. The pre-header text is usually going to be telling us more detail about what the email is. And if you're a novice email marketer and you dipped your toe into it a couple of years ago, if you're a small business or nonprofit that doesn't know what they're doing and they're looking for guidance, then using the pre-header text is a great way to show your expertise. The pre-header text, of course, helps get an email opened. It gives the subject line a little more impact. It's really great to use as a tease, but for you, if you're either speaking one-to-many or one-to-one, going into the value of the pre-header text and the fact that you can edit it here is a really powerful tool. Given their own designs, a small business or nonprofit generally wouldn't even venture into using this and certainly wouldn't leverage it to their advantage. On top of that, the pre-header text is a really creative way to start people thinking about mobile email marketing. So getting into that mobile space where most of their audience lives, so you can kind of get them thinking about mobile. And as I said, given to their own devices, small business and nonprofits, if they never ventured here, the pre-header text would just be the first sentence of their email, would not be very enlightening and causing opens. I'm not going to go too deep on this next go-to item, except to make sure you download the free Android and or iOS apps for Constant Contact. There's two apps, a List Builder app and the Constant Contact app. The List Builder app allows you to collect email addresses and other contact information, customizable, great for trade shows, great for retail, any place where we want to capture email addresses. It can be collected online or offline. The Constant Contact app basically is Constant Contact on an app. You can create emails, you can edit lists, you can manipulate lists, you can look at analytics. It's a fantastic tool, and what I love about both apps is it actually just broadens the Constant Contact brand. For the price of one tool, you're actually getting three. So make sure you go and download those from your app store. Get used to them. Do know that the List app is really only available and meant for tablets. Next, let's bring in some new elements that have come to Constant Contact in the last few months. As I've been rolling these out to live audiences and in trainings, these are absolute delighters. If you haven't used these, definitely use these. I can't imagine you not using at least one of these because it's such a delighter. But there's some others that you might have overlooked, and certainly work this into your pitches. So we're revolving all around subject line here, and first let's start with emojis. Emojis can increase open rates. They certainly gather more attention. The fact that emojis are used in so many different kinds of communication now only helps you cement the case. We do suggest that you use Emojipedia as your source for the emoji, just because they're going to be universal and they'll be applicable across every device. So you choose the emoji you want to use in the email in the subject line. You copy it, and here's just an example of the way it's rendered across devices, and you paste it into the subject line. You probably don't want to use too many, but it's a fantastic way to increase the open rate, delight an audience, impress an individual. You know, even if you have somebody that's maybe not a big fan of emojis, it's a little bit hard to argue with the fact that it certainly gets a little more attention, but that can also allow you to bridge into the next feature, which is the A/B split test. The A/B split test, if you haven't used it, is a fantastic delighter. It's a really impressive tool and certainly wow an audience, and I can't imagine it not impressing a one-on-one interaction. So just a real highlight. We've done a lot of deep training on this, but you put in two different subject lines. You determine how much of your audience will receive each subject line. You determine how many days and hours the test will run. Constant Contact will analyze which subject line has worked the best and will send the winning subject line to the remainder of the audience. And this is a fantastic way to not only showcase the power of Constant Contact, but also teach an individual or an audience to test their assumptions. If you get them to testing their assumptions, now you're getting them to think more deeply about their marketing, and ideally they'll hire you to service their account. Lastly, let's go back to the edit screen and talk about personalization, because we can personalize the subject line here. Personalization, you add personalization and you follow this link. You're going to grab a little bit of code and paste it in. Again, we've done deeper training on this in a variety of places on the portal, through Facebook. I don't want to go too in-depth in the training, more the philosophy of using this. But you paste in this code, and what it'll do is it'll sync up the contact database and personalize the subject line. I have to imagine this is pretty obvious, but the personalization of a subject line is a really valuable way to get attention in the subject line, get more opens, and it also enhances the need for them to work with you and hire you, because this is starting to lean into data management. Certainly you can't personalize an email subject line without the contact details. Now, do know Constant Contact offers a fallback, so if they're missing the contact details, they can still use this, but ideally you can start to work with them not just in their marketing strategy, but also in their contact procurement strategy, and maybe even in their CRM usage. So it's a fantastic addition to Constant Contact. It certainly wows audiences. One thing I do also want to stress about this is that it's a little complicated, and the fact that it's a little complicated might lean into your business strategy even better than you might think, because it's using code. A lot of small business and nonprofits kind of back away when there's code mentioned, and between all of us, this isn't actually very difficult. It is impressive to small business and nonprofits, but it might scare them just a little bit, and that little bit of apprehension might be additional business for you. All right, let's go back to something really basic, something you probably have overlooked but should be part of your trainings, your pitches, any consults you're doing, and it's really basic. It's the undo. The fact that you can undo your work back to any point during the time you've been editing is really powerful because, one, it takes away some apprehension from people using Constant Contact, the feeling they might make a mistake. Two, and I think more importantly, it is a big differentiator between us and some of our competition. So some of our competition, it's very hard to undo a mistake or even undo something you intentionally did and then decide to go a different direction. And the fact that you can undo your work, as long as you're maintaining the editing screen, if I move away from this, it's going to, of course, save to that last point I've worked on it. But if I'm undoing, as long as I'm editing, it's really, really easy to do. And of course, I can easily redo the work I've done too. Make sure you work this in any kind of pitch. Make sure you work this in any kind of demo training you're doing. It's, again, a big difference between us and some of our major competitors. It's very hard to undo some of the work in some of our competitors. All right, let's go into animated GIFs. I'd be willing to bet many of you use this, but you certainly should be working this in any kind of demo you do. Certainly any kind of one-on-one presentation of what you and your staff and your organization can do for a small business or nonprofit. Constant Contact supports GIFs, and you can use GIFs in Constant Contact. You do need to use some third-party GIF maker. I happen to use MakeAGIF.com, a free tool. There's a lot of them out there. GIFit's one that I know is really popular. I like MakeAGIF. It's really a matter of what you and your staff like. MakeAGIF will turn still images into GIFs, YouTube videos into GIFs, Facebook videos into GIFs, and files on the computers into GIFs. We'll go with YouTube to GIF, and here I have a video that I'd want to use in my client email or in my email. I copy the URL, I paste it in, it's going to convert that into an animated GIF, just repeating a couple of seconds of that video over and over again. I can decide when it starts, when it ends, how long it'll be. I publish it, which is basically save it. I save it down onto my computer. I then upload that to Constant Contact, and the end result is an animated GIF. Really powerful for video because it looks like a video, it feels like a video, but because it's not a video, because it's an image, I can link it to anything. I can link it back to the original video, but I could link it to anything else, gathering more eyeballs, certainly causing likely a higher click-through rate. I wouldn't fill my email up with animated GIFs, and I'd be very careful about using it too often and too many emails. It would water down the impact. But if we can come back again to pitching Constant Contact, training Constant Contact, demoing Constant Contact, I would definitely use a GIF in your presentation. And it's also just a crowd pleaser. It's just really neat. Individuals like it, groups like it. It's a fantastic go-to item in any presentation I use. My next go-to is another brand new one. I'm not going to go in depth on how to use it. I've done 2 marketing minutes, the previous marketing minutes, on how to use it and actually how to leverage it for your business. But if you haven't gotten the new branded template creator in front of an audience or even one-to-one, you should do it. It's a fantastic, great benefit to Constant Contact. It's a real crowd pleaser. It's a big pain point resolver, and I encourage you to practice with it, get used to it, and get it in front of audiences. All right, the next one is relatively new as well. I've only gotten to show this a couple of times, but it really causes oohs and ahs, and it solves a big pain point for small businesses, and that's the resend to non-openers. You can resend an email to anybody that didn't open the email. We give you a variety of dates to choose from between when you're sending the first email and when you're resending the email. Of course, the best practice is to change the subject line to something completely different. If they didn't open the email the first time with the original subject line, they're likely not going to open it with the second. And just an asterisk here, you can't use this and the A/B split test at the same time. But this is a constant concern, and many of you that do any kind of public speaking, or certainly even if you've done work with any client, people are really concerned about anybody that didn't open the original email. It's definitely a really big value to the Constant Contact product. It also is putting us more square footing with our competition, some of which have this kind of feature. It's definitely, when you combine all the other benefits to Constant Contact, just one more crown in the jewel and should push you over the edge. Use it in any demo, use it in any one-on-one consult, certainly start using it even with your clients. It's a fantastic benefit to Constant Contact. It certainly wows any audience I've been in front of since we've launched it. Lastly, I'm going to go to an old chestnut, my go-to. This I was at a presentation yesterday. This came up and it wowed the group. It has been in Constant Contact. Well, I've been in Constant Contact for 7 years. It's been in Constant Contact for 7 years. I know plenty of partners that actually overlook this. And it is a fantastic lever for you to pull no matter what the scenario is. It's found under sign-up forms. We're going to go to landing pages and more. And it's text to join. Text to sign up, text to join really, really wows people, especially if you're talking to an audience, if you're in front of a group, if you're doing a demo. Always wedge text to join in. absolutely show it to any potential client you're working on. What text to join does is it allows you to come up with a keyword. Constant Contact will issue you or your client a texting phone number. The keyword is original to you or your client, and people can join a list by texting the keyword to that phone number. It's a fantastic feature. If you've never used it and you want to learn more, I'd encourage you to seek out some more education on the portal. Reach out to your account manager. This is my go-to. I'm going to always use this in any presentation that it's applicable. If I have the time, if I can do it, I'm going to show text to join. I would highly encourage you, if you aren't using text to join for your clients, if you're not using text to join in any kind of presentation you make, again, whether that's one-to-many or one-to-one, use text to join. It is a delighter. It really impresses people, and the fact that it is included in Constant Contact, but in some of our competition, they'll charge you for it, is one more way to push people over the edge.
So I imagine, especially with some of those newer features, you're probably already utilizing those in one-to-many or one-to-one individual sessions with people. But if you're not, definitely lean into those, definitely use some of those features, and don't overlook those smaller, even older features. Often they can cause a reaction, especially text to join, text to sign up. And with that, we'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks a lot. Take care.